Doing good? I'm telling you, man. I know that's not the normal way to do church, but I do like getting a hot cup of coffee right in the middle of the service. It's a nice... I do want to say this. Happy Thanksgiving. If I won't see any of you between now and Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving. I hope you will take a moment throughout all the busyness and all the time with family to take a moment and just reflect on what all we do have to be grateful for. I think it's a pretty cool fact of our nation that we have a holiday just built around being grateful. That's pretty cool. Also, I do want to just say real quick, a welcome to everyone watching online. I'm going to say, just ignore me for a second. I'm going to talk to I meet you guys places, by the way. So I meet you in restaurants and, around town. So come visit. I like meeting you guys, but thank you for joining us online. I don't know if y'all know this, but we got people to watch online, so that's pretty cool. Here's how Faith Promise works, okay? Faith Promise is a promise made in faith, okay? It says, God, if you provide X number of dollars per month or over the next year, and I will give it towards Faith Promise. And so here's how our budget works in Foothills is when you give to the general fund, and you do give to the general fund, we're very grateful for that, by the way. You guys are a very awesome and generous church. That is how we go about funding the different areas of ministry at our church. Okay, that's how we keep the lights on. That's how we keep curriculum going to the kids. It's how we keep people, paid and doing serving in place, and we don't run out of things and stuff like that because of the general fund giving. And we're very grateful for that. But when you give to Faith Promise, it's pass through. It's not going to go in and whatever's left after we pay the light bill or whatever, the gas. Then we can It's just what we get is going to go towards missions. And this is a cool area. If you've never actually been a person who's given to church before, you've never known how to really trust it. Oh, what are they really? That's not really true. When Christians talk about the blessings of being a generous Christian and all that sort of stuff, you go, I don't think that's really true. Whatever. Faith Promise is a great first step because one, you're not giving to us. It's not like we're just trying to say, how can we just get stuff out of your hands? And two, you can actually track it. God, if you provide, I'll give. If you provide, I'll give. And it's a good baby step to learn how to be generous. And here's why it's so important. The very center, the very heart of the Christian faith is what's called the Great Commission. At the end of Jesus' life, after he died on the cross, after he rose from the dead, after he reinitiated his relationship with his disciples, after he got his disciples back on board and on mission again, he took them up on a mountainside and he said, this is the last thing I'm going to say to you. Go into all the world. Make disciples. Baptize them. And teach them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I will be with you always. That is the heartbeat of the church. It was after this moment, it was after this command, this commissioning of Jesus to his disciples, to you, to me, that the church a couple of days later, 40 days later, was going to burst into life and spread across the known world, and ultimately spread across Europe, spread across the New Land, spread across South America, spread across Africa, spread across Asia. You can trace the spread of Christianity across the world over the last 2,000 years, and it has been amazing to see. And the heartbeat behind all of it has been the command of Jesus to go and make disciples. And for the entire history of the church, there's actually a letter in the Bible to the church in Corinthians. There's two letters in the Bible called 1st and 2nd Corinthians. One of them is Paul talking to them. He takes a moment and says, now I'm going to show up, and we've all talked about this before. We're going to do this. I'm going to take up a collection because we have a church over here in Jerusalem that is hurting and they need help. And so from the very beginning into the pages of the Bible, you see not only are there Christians going into all the world, there's also Christians helping other Christians go into all the world. It's just a way Christians have always lived. And last week we started our series asking a question that our culture wants to know from us. And it was articulated by Leslie Newbigin, who was a missionary and then became a Christian thinker, and he said this. Here's the question at the heart of the why are you doing this, church? That everyone wants to know. Why not just join all the peoples of goodwill tackling the human problems of hunger, oppression, sickness, and alienation? Why not just do that? Instead of seeking more adherence to your religious group. That's the question that everybody wants to know. Have you ever thought that question? Have you felt that question being asked to you from our world? What is so great about being Christian? What's so great about Christian missions? That you have to go and do all this. When, in reality, there's a lot of hunger out there, and a lot of oppression, a lot of sickness, a lot of alienation. Why not just focus on them? And the answer that we gave last week, what Leslie Newbegin points out is, and this is how he answers the question. It's really interesting. It's kind of blocky, but bear with me. He says this, that the questions themselves, why not focus on these things? Those questions, they imply certain commitments about how the human situation can be understood and how we can respond to it. The Christian mission, the fact that we do missions around the world as Christians, rests upon one such commitment. There's 1,000 commitments out there. Christians believe in one of them. And in fact, Christian missions is the practical working out of that commitment. That when you and I fund missions, and you and I tell our friends about our Jesus, and you and I go into our workplaces, in our neighborhoods, and we live as Christians among our friends and our neighbors, that is the practical working out of what we believe about Jesus. And he says this, when you answer the question, what is the human situation? And how do you respond to it? The Christian life of going and telling is the practical working out of that answer. And here's the deal. When people come up to us and say, why can't you just focus on the bigger things? Why can't you just worry about the things like sickness and alienation and suffering and oppression? Why do you have to do this? They're treating that question as if it's a trump card that can just be played on top of all the world religions. Oh, you care about this over there, and you care about this over there, and you care about... Oh, but I have this great modern Western scientific answer. There's just a bigger what if on the top of everything. And here's what I need you to hear. Those are themselves opinions and preferences about how the world works and how we should respond to it. And you can hear these understandings come out if you stop and listen long enough. They're the just need statements. Have you ever heard a just need statement? People just need to get along. People just need, those billionaires, they just need to share their wealth. People are hungry, they just need food. People just need a good job. They just need. That's a worldview. That's an understanding of how life works and how we should respond to it. And if you go throughout the world, you will find 1,000 different opinions about how this life works and how we should respond to it. There's the traditional view versus the individualistic view. There's the Western versus Eastern versus Middle Eastern view. There's the Republican view and the Democratic view. There's the Southern and the Northern and the Midwestern and the West Coast view. Right? There's the Boomer view, the Gen Z view, the Millennial view, and no one really cares about the Gen X view, right? Like there's that, right? By the way, isn't that the funniest thing ever? Gen X, oh my gosh, you guys, whatever. But no one cares, like really no one cares. So I'm just joking. Well, I'm not entirely joking. But listen, all those views where we all come up with this idea of what people just need are opinions and preferences as to how the world works and what we should do to it in response to it. And the Christian answer to those questions has always been, no, you don't just have to figure out what you need is to discover what the most important thing is. You have to discover what the deepest need is. You have to discover what is it that this world really is like. What is the truest human situation that we are dealing with, and how do we respond to that? And while, yes, Christians do believe that there is a lot of hunger and sickness and alienation and oppression out there, but the deepest need that we all have is our spiritual hunger, our spiritual sickness, spiritual oppression, and spiritual alienation from the Creator of the universe. And that is the heart of what needs to be answered. And what we said last week was the reason Christian missions is so important, the reason why we have this need to go out into all the world, not just serve people, but also tell them about the gospel of Jesus Christ, is because Jesus Christ is the center of everything that's ever happened. He is the central figure of human history. The Bible says, in him we live and move and have our being. And he is such a giant figure over human history that every person on the face of the earth has to figure out what to do with him. We have to wrap our hands around him. We have to wrestle him to the ground. What are you going to believe about Jesus? What do you think about the man? What are you going to do with the man? You have to get your hands on him so you can figure that out. It's a question you can't just not answer. You have to do something with it. And that's where we were last week. And where we are this week is another question that I don't know, as I was writing this sermon, I don't know if this question is as important, more important, less important. But this question we have to ask today can never be asked without the last question. And the last question can never be asked without this question. And the first question is, what are you going to do when you get your hands on Jesus? You got to figure something out about this man. And then there's this other question that goes like this. What will Jesus do when he gets his hands on you? What does Jesus have in store? What are his plans? When he starts teaching, the first will be last and the last will be first. And the greatest among you will be the servant of all. Like, what is he trying to get across there? What's his plan for this world? What's he trying to accomplish? And the answer to that question is this: life change. What Jesus wants in your life and in my life is life change. And that life change will come into our life, and it'll boil over, and it'll spill out into the world around us. And so as we become more united with Christ, the things like hunger and sickness and oppression and alienation just start mattering more to us. And Christians begin to deal with the things that are going on in this dark world. That once we wrestle Jesus, once we understand what we're going to do with Jesus, we realize that he has a plan of what he wants to do with us. And it changes everything. The church was born into the Roman world. Rome was the king of everything in that day. And in Rome, there's this very normal thing that they would do. It was normal. No one would bat an eye at it. It was just every day. You could just kind of write a letter to your wife about it, just talk about it openly. No one would care. It was called infant exposure. Isn't that a nice sounding word, by the way? Infant exposure. It almost sounds like it's on behalf of the child. Well, infant exposure was if you were in the Roman world and you got you had a baby and it was born, and you didn't want that baby for whatever reason. It was sickly, it was too small, it was a girl or it was a boy, it was deformed in some way. You didn't want it, I don't want it, I don't know how I ended up with this, but I don't want it anymore. They would do something called infant exposure, where they just leave it on a garbage dump or on a doorstep or out in the elements, and it would just die from exposure. Easy peasy, not my problem anymore. And by the way, it was normal. No one cared about that. And from the moment Jesus got his hands on this group of people called Christians, that immediately was like, we can't do that. You can't do that. No one can do that. And they ran around the Roman world rescuing babies out of garbage bins and doorsteps and rescuing and raising them as their own. And the fact that you've ever heard of the idea of an orphanage came because Jesus got his hands on a group of people. And right now, for all of human history, up until this day, you will find Christians around the world going around rescuing children out of hunger and out of sickness. You'll see medical missionaries and people connecting you with a child in Africa and say, with this amount of money, you can pay for their schooling, you can pay for their food, so they don't have to be uneducated and starving for the rest of their lives. And you can find Christians reaching out saying, how can my life change in Jesus Christ spill out into the world around us? Right now in this world, there are pregnancy care centers where when a young girl gets pregnant, she thinks she has no options. They go, you do have options. You don't have to abort your baby. You can come to us. We can help you. We can get this child set up in a healthy, stable home so they can have a good life. You don't have to abort your child. Come to us. We can help. And in their fear, and they're scared, and they go, what do I do next? What they need to do is run into some Christians who've experienced some life change. And that life change spills out into the rest of the world around us. There's a ministry called Mercy Ships. And Mercy Ships is where medical doctors show up and they get on this retired cruise ship, and they go to like the coast of Africa, and then they send out all these people, say, if you're sick, come to us, we'll do surgeries for you. And people come up, and for 5 days, they just have thousands upon thousands of people having these surgeries they never have access to. But because some Christians like Jesus get his hands on them, they said, how can I give up vacation time? How can I give up vacation time and go serve these people around the world, and their life change spills out of their lives and into the world around them, and these people get surgeries they've never been able to have in Africa or in these small areas because they were Christians and they experienced the love of Jesus. They just wanted to serve the world. It has left them behind. And a man went and volunteered with them one time. He realized they didn't have enough time to do all the surgeries and heal all the sicknesses that these people had, because there's just too many people, too many sick people, too many tumors and things they had to work on. And so they would work like mad for a week, and then they'd have to leave. And all these people traveled for days to come. And he learned, he goes, wow, you know what? More than 50% of the surgeries, most of the sicknesses that these people are dealing with are from the fact that they don't have clean water. And so his whole ministry from ever since it's called Charity Water, from that day forward, he's decided, I'm going to build water wells all over the world so people can have clean water. And all over the world, not just him, but all over the world, there are missionaries, Christian missionaries, finding ways to get into these places that don't have running water and giving them a well so that they can have clean water and not sicknesses that comes from just having stagnant, bad, unhealthy water in their world. And if you ever, and these doctors they pop up on the New York Times articles every once in a while, if you ever hear about these doctors that went to medical schools that you would respect and have medical degrees that you would respect and have this knowledge that you would appreciate, and they just live their lives in the bush, in these small areas around the world, to be a local doctor, living at moments of being in danger of their own lives and everything else, very often what you'll find out is those doctors are Christians because they've experienced the life-changing love of Jesus. And that life change spills out into the world around them. I once heard an article of these two journalists were talking to each other, and they were researching the kind of charity work being done in places like Africa and these other places around the world. And one journalist asked the other, he goes, I love that Christians serve the poor. I love that they do these medical things. I love they do all that. But why can't they just do that and not preach Jesus? Why do they have to add that other part on there? And the other journalist goes, I get it. I understand. Because neither one of them were Christians. He goes, the two just seem to go together. Isn't that great? The two just seem to go together. Well, that's what happens when Jesus gets his hands on people and he brings about life change. And that life change spills out into the world around them. I want to spend the rest of our time together today introducing you to some of our missionaries, and hopefully we will, as the year goes on, we'll get to know more of these missionaries better. But last year, we took up a one-time love offering. We raised $1,600, and that went to two different things. It went to one, Western Carolina. There's a hurricane that hit, and there's just mass devastation. Do you remember what happened last year, by the way? Do you remember that when all the stuff happened over there with Western Carolina? There were journalists walking around going, I can't believe this. I can't believe the sheer number of Christians just dedicating weekends to this part of the world. I can't believe how many Christians are just giving so much. One journalist actually said, I haven't been to church in 15 years, but I'm going this Sunday because I've seen what's happening, how Christians respond to hardship. And then we also sent a young man, this is James Simerson, we helped send him to Japan on a one-year internship. In Japan, James is now going to stay there longer, and so we're going to try to help him support there, but he's been there, and he's part of this group that's called Disciple-Making Movements, and they do this stuff called, it's door-to-door evangelism, really. He goes in and he helps people, helps churches become more evangelistic and helps them figure things out. And we learn about this in Matthew 10 where Jesus sends his 12 disciples out and he goes, hey, when you go, knock on a door. If that door will bring you in, great. If they won't, move on. And so the term is that if the person says, yes, I would love to talk to you about this, they become what's known as a person of peace. It's like you're into that community. It's a person who actually cares. And James is over there, and I was talking to him, and he shared this story with me. I thought, oh my gosh. Because here's something that I've been keeping my eye on with Japan that I'm worried about is coming to America. There is this massive epidemic of loneliness in Japan. And it's brutal. It's a shame and honor culture. And so they have these people who lock themselves away because they can't bear to see the world because they failed at their business, they failed their work, and they can't go look people in the eye, and so they just kind of stay away. I've also heard this thing called death by loneliness, where these people are just recluse, they're shut in, and they won't go out, and they die, and people don't know that they died until their body starts smelling bad, and their neighbors go, wait, what's going on over there? Like, it's a bad thing. And this is the culture that James is going to work with. And what I didn't know is that they had a word for it. The word for what this is called hikikomori. They actually have a word. It's like a hermit. It's a person that shuts them away. And I asked him to send a video, and I had to edit this down so it's a little choppy, but listen to the story that he shared about this guy.
Morning, Foothills Christian Church. My name is James. I'm currently a missionary serving here in Japan. You guys have been supporting me for this past year. I have so many stories I could share with you, but I'll just share this one. So hikikomori is a big deal in Japan, and it's basically like Japanese shut-ins. So people who just, become a hermit and close themselves off from society. And this past year I saw a guy, he followed Jesus, and he was a hikikomori, and he's now partnering with us, right? And going out, sharing the gospel, doing door-to-door evangelism. I just think that's crazy, because this is a guy who is super lonely, depressed, closed himself off from society, and through the power of Jesus, right, he overcame that, I guess, through Christ. And now he's he's no longer that guy, but now he's going at door to door, sharing the gospel, sharing personal testimonies of how Christ has changed his life with random strangers. And the Lord has really just blessed him in that. There's lots of amazing things that God is doing here in Gifu, and lots of amazing things that God is doing in Okinawa. So, my ask of you guys is to prayerfully consider joining me in the next year, 2 years, supporting me and supporting the ministry that's going on here in Japan. So I look forward to hearing from you guys and seeing you guys soon here in the next couple months when I return to America. So anyways, yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Mata ne.
Isn't that amazing? It's not just life change. It's the complete opposite. This man is strapped into his house. He won't go out. This is a problem that the government of Japan doesn't know how to solve. People are writing articles about it right now in City Journal and around America. Go, what's happening here? They don't know how to solve this problem. And this man hears about Jesus. And he comes outside and goes, wow, the sky's still blue. Life's still going on. It's still worthwhile out here. And it's not just that. It's not just that he left his house. He left his house and he's going into the community for other people. He's now reaching out to other people. It's not just life change. It's the exact opposite. Jesus got his hands on this man. And that life change spilled out into the world around him. And I'm really excited. James is a young man. He's a young guy. And I'm really excited to see what's going to happen there in the long run. But that missionary effort is in its infant stages. And I cannot wait to see. We are not going to despise the day of small beginnings. I hope in 10 years from now we go, I hope we're all just sharing stories about this guy going, you won't believe what God did when we just helped this guy go to Japan. But we're also supporting a mission called Pro-Im Polish Missionaries. And this is a mission it's older than we are. It's got decades of foundation. And this is, they have been around for maybe 4 decades at this point, and they're doing so many things that we can't even count them, actually. It's amazing what this group is doing. And my dad told me this, and I didn't realize this. Our brotherhood of churches, the Christian churches, made its way into Poland the same year communism took over. So that's how That's how old the Christian church movement is there. And the wall came down, and communism lost its grip on Eastern Europe, and the church is still there, and the church is doing amazing things. But Pro-Am started as a sports camp for kids. Like, you'd go out there and spend your week playing soccer and all that sort of things, and hundreds of people have given their lives to Christ over the last lifetime of that. But then the ministry has just grown and grown and grown from there. They've planted churches in cities throughout Poland, and they've done that. And one couple, Daniel and Edita, actually came and spent a year at my home church. In my home church, we did a thing called The Journey. It was a Christmas play outside, and you have all these sets. It's kind of like our Firelight Mysteries, and you hear one scene of the story at a time, and you walk to the next, and you get to walk through Bethlehem. It's super cool, and it's a really well-done thing. And Daniel and Edita, they see this, and their minds just explode. They go, we can do this. Like, we can make this happen. And so they're like, we have a camp at our disposal. Let's go do it. And so they sit down with my mom, who created The Journey. They've got all the scripts into Polish, and they went back home, and they cast a vision for it. And they're like, we're going to put this on. And thousands of people showed up to see this play. And many of them stood in the snow to do it. And all three of the major Polish news networks showed up to come do a story on this play they were doing. And one journalist started sobbing all over the news media. He said, I've never heard so much about the gospel in my life. It's amazing. Like, they didn't know what to do with this. Yeah, it's a classic God move, make the journalist cry. And then the mayor of the town shows up, and he goes, we actually have this medieval castle. I don't know, do you think you could do anything with that? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, hey, Mom, we need a Easter play. And so now they're doing the Journey to Bethlehem in winter, and they're doing the Journey to the Cross at this medieval historic monument in Poland, and the mayor asked them to do it. Isn't that amazing? You guys are not excited enough about this story. That is amazing. Name one historic building in America a mayor would ask a church to use. But what happened? God got his hands on these people, and the life change in Poland started spilling out into other areas of Poland. Hundreds of people getting baptized through the camps. They actually use this camp now with their international relationships they have through just different missionary partners. They use their camp once a year as a refresh retreat for other missionaries working in other parts of the world. And they come in and get to be served at this camp and find some rest. And some ministers from America will come in and they'll do seminars on spiritual disciplines or finances or things, or marriage conferences, like things like that, just to help and serve and love these people. And now this Polish ministry is helping put on a sports camp in Zimbabwe with some friends of theirs, because the love of Christ changes people. And it moves out into the rest of the world. And when we talk about Faith Promise, when we talk about building our relationships with international Christians around the world, this is what we're hoping for. This is what we're hoping to see. We say, God, you are already on the move. That's what our God is. He's a God who's already on the move. He's already working in our midst. And we want to be a part of it, because it's the greatest work in the history of the world. And the question that we all have to answer is this: what are you going to do with Jesus? And what is Jesus going to do with you? Jesus gave a parable. It's my favorite parable. It goes like this. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed into about 60 pounds of flour until it worked all through the dough. Isn't that a great image? The kingdom of heaven is like a woman who got her hands in this dead flour and this dead water and added some secret ingredients to it. Yeast, leaven, and she just worked it, and she worked it and worked it until one day that dough would never be the same again. She took that dead, lifeless lump and turned it into bread. And Jesus says our world is like that dough, and God's got his hands on it, and he's working it. And he's putting the grace of Jesus through it. He's putting his love and compassion and kindness through it. And when he's done with getting his hands on our planet, this planet will never be the same again. And I, for one, want to be a part of that mission. And we didn't even have a chance to tell stories about LCAP, the Louisville Community Assistance Program. It's right here in our nation, in our town, that helps feed people, get groceries, and sometimes helps pay their bills. We didn't talk about Waypoint that plants churches up and down the east coast of America. We didn't talk about Campus Christian Fellowship that's reaching out to college students on 4 of our state universities right here in North Carolina. We didn't talk about the Keeleys who are on missions, helping plant churches and help families grow in their faith in Thailand. There's a lot going on that we get to be a part of, and I'm excited. I'm excited for where God is taking us. And I believe that when we start building these relationships around our state and around our world, our faith in this room will grow. Our faith will grow. But as everything with our faith, it takes walking by faith. It takes little steps of faith along the way. We say, God, I'll trust you here. And then he goes, wow, you came through me. I'll trust you here. And you go, wow, he came through. And one day you'll find yourself taking giant leaps of faith going, I just know God's going to come through. But if you've never made any of these small leaps of faith before, if you've never given to missions around the world, this is a great first step. Because it's your faith, it's your commitment to God saying, God, if you come through for me, I will fund your missions around the world. And here's the deal. If you're in a bind, if you feel like you don't have any money in your bank account to give to Faith Promise, then don't. That's the whole premise of it. But if God does provide for us, let's not go on a date with it. Let's not go on vacation with it. Let's actually give it to the work of God around the world. The question we have to ask is, what are we going to do with the lives that God has given us? Because we have a loving God who desperately wants to get his hands on us and work the kingdom of God into us like a woman works dough. I am excited. I'm excited. And I think what we do through Faith Promise is only going to grow and grow and grow. But this year is the beginning of it. This is the year. This is the group of Christians right here in this room that when we tell stories 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now, we go, we started Faith Promise. We didn't know what it was going to look like, but we just started working and building relationships. You will be the people we're talking about. We go, but some of us just got together and made a commitment, and we funded missions around the world. And one day, our ministry may be a massive thing, but right now, it's the beginning. And it takes faith on your part. It takes faith on my part. And I cannot wait to see what God does with it. Will you pray with me?